Welcome back into today's video. We're going to have a look at the weather for the coming month. Today we've got the update from the Japanese model, JMA Friday. As always on a Friday we have a look at weather for the coming month from Japan. And we're also going to have a look at the CFS as well, quite a bit going on for the video. There was a lot of speculation yesterday about some newspaper headlines that appeared talking about a very, very hot August that was supposedly on the way. It was going to be baking hot, dangerous heat, the air being sucked up from Africa, and the British Isles would basically be turned into a fan-assisted oven, I think was the general gist of the weather that we were seeing in the papers yesterday. I'm not seeing much sign of it really on these charts at the moment. It's not to say that it's not going to happen, but certainly for the next week to 10 days there's no sign of anything particularly hot coming up. It will be warm at times. I think temperatures are still going to be above average, albeit rather unsettling, and I'll show you the reason for that as we go through the charts. But I don't think the heat can be sustained because it's quite an unsettled pattern, so if it does turn hot it'll very quickly break down into thunderstorms, and the sort of heat that they talked about in the papers yesterday is really generated by a sustained hot pattern that goes on and on. If you remember the August 2003 where temperatures hit 100 Fahrenheit, that was really generated by very hot days, day after day after day, and of course it starts to feed back on itself as the ground sort of gets hotter and bakes. Then the temperature begins to lift up on a day-by-day basis. But you need to have it going on for several days to get that kind of heat, and I'm not really seeing much evidence, I have to say, certainly for the next week to 10 days, for that to be taking place. And the long-range charts aren't really hinting at it in the second half of August either, and of course by the second half of August the wind is certainly starting to get a lot weaker. The winds are starting to get a little bit cooler really, and the air masses are getting a little bit cooler, so it's always harder in the second half of August to generate extreme heat as opposed to the first half of August. That's why the end of July, early August is always the hottest period statistically, or on average, for the British Isles. By the second half of August it's beginning to get harder to generate extreme heat. Now that's not to say that those newspaper headlines that you saw or heard about yesterday can't come off. I always have the idea that you shouldn't write off the forecast until after the forecast period. I mean, go back and verify it, but I'm not seeing much sign of it happening on this morning's update. Just to say, I'll be doing the full August forecast from GasOverViz.com sometime over the weekend. Not sure if it'll be Saturday or Sunday. It could be Saturday evening. But certainly sometime over the weekend you'll be able to see the full August update forecast from GasOverViz. Now, before I get on with the video, I just want to say about the advertising. There's video ads on pages at GasOverViz.com. If you could hit play on the video ad, you'll be helping to support GasOverViz.com. Thanks very much for doing that. The video ads really pay for the website, so if you could hit play on the ad to see what it's about, you will be helping to pay for me to sit here and talk to you via the website. So thanks very much for getting involved and doing that. So just to start off with the situation today and tomorrow, we've got quite a wet spell coming up for northern and western parts of the country. This is the current radar picture from the weatheroutlook.com. A lot of heavy rain up here over northern England, stretching down into Wales as well. If we have a look at the high resolution Euro 4 model from the website Weather Online, this is the precipitation forecast from Euro 4. You can find the link to both Weather Outlook and Weather Online on my links page. This is a UK Met Office product, and the BBC forecasts are based on these precipitation forecasts. So this is the prediction for right now. I'm doing a video midday. Rain across northern England, go down into Wales, into the southwest of England. That's a pretty good representation of where we're currently at. As we go through the afternoon, rain turns a little bit more showery actually, but it's still in the same sort of areas. Northern England down into Wales, into southwest England, some thundery showers for Scotland and Northern Ireland, very little getting down through the Midlands into southeastern parts of England. Overnight we're going to find the rain gathering again down in the southwest. It turns really wet through parts of northern England, particularly northwest England, down into Wales and into southwestern parts of England as well. could be some rain coming through East Anglia, perhaps the East Midlands up in towards Lincolnshire. That could be in the form of thundery shower, perhaps. Have to watch out what's going on with that one. But the main area of rain is certainly out to the west through the course of tonight, going through into Saturday morning. The rain really sets in over southern Scotland, down into northern England, through Wales. Could be some torrential rain in places leading to flash flooding. Very little getting down through the Midlands into southeast parts of England once again. And through the course of Saturday afternoon into towards Saturday evening, that rain pushes northwards into Scotland, becomes stuck over Scotland, and hooks back into northwestern parts of England. So a very, very wet afternoon and evening likely for Scotland and northwestern England. Things will improve on Sunday as that rain continues to push northwards and eastwards out of Scotland, but certainly in the north and west in for a proper wet sort of time of it, I think, over the coming 24 hours or so. Now, going out beyond that, let's have a look at the update from the Japanese model. Let's say it's JMA Friday. We've got the month-ahead update from Japan. These are 500 millibar height anomalies, and they're broken down into weekly periods. The first week period will be taking us from the 31st of July to the 7th of August, so the week that we're currently in. First thing to say that British Isles is upside down on these charts we're just here. The blue colours are indicating low pressure, the orange and reds indicating high pressure, or the yellows and reds indicating high pressure. So the coming week we've got a trough of low pressure really out to west and sitting over the British Isles, an area of above average height sitting to the east and the northeast. So it's a battleground UK scenario. I've talked about this on the videos through the course of this week. We're between high pressure to the east, low pressure to the west. It's relatively unsettled to the west of the country. Actually, we could be bringing in some bouts of rain into the west, and they will progress eastwards at times, although in the east we will have some days but warmer and drier. Winds are generally southerly between the high pressure and low pressure, or the airflow is generally southerly between the high pressure and low pressure. So it's not going to be cold, it's going to be quite warm actually through this coming week. Warm and unsettled basically sums it up. So it could get hot for a day or two on this sort of scenario, but with the trough so deep, any heat will very quickly break down into thunderstorms or unsettled conditions. So it's not a pattern that can sustain the heat for a prolonged period of time. Have a look at the second weekly period, which takes us from the 7th to the 14th of August. Very little change actually. The trough of low pressure is still around, maybe slightly to the west of the country. The ridge of high pressure is out to the east and the northeast. The airflow again is generally southerly sort of bay, so it isn't cold, it's quite a warm scenario. It could turn even hot perhaps for a day or two in the south and the southeast on that sort of situation. But again, the trough is quite strong, quite dominant just to the west of the country. So if any heat was to be generated, it will very quickly break down as the trough rolls back in and flattens things off a little bit, and of course produce thunderstorms and then cools things off. So very little change through the first 2 weeks period of August. Does look generally quite warm, but overall pretty unsettled, particularly but not exclusively to the west. Now, as we go through to the final 2 week period, which takes us from the 14th to the 28th of August, then we get a little bit of a change. We start to see the trough lifting out to west of the country and centering more up towards Iceland and Greenland. At the same time, the ridge to the east and the northeast is easing as well. I think what's going on there is that we're basically reverting to a more typical westerly flat type pattern. So the jet stream is becoming westerly based, and it's sort of average late summer conditions. To be honest, could be very pleasant. May bring a few bands of rain through at times, particularly to the north and west, but overall, excuse me, quite a nice sort of second 2 week period for August, if that's right. But temperatures perhaps could be a little bit cooler. They'll be reverting, I think, to nearer average on that sort of setup, because the winds are going from a southerly sort of direction to a westerly type direction. So maybe a little bit cooler, but certainly not cold. Temperatures just going back towards where they should be at the latter part of the summer. And overall, that's quite a nice sort of end to August, I think, if that was to come off. But again, nothing there really to suggest that it's going to turn particularly hot or particularly settled for a prolonged period of time through the course of this August. Now we're going to have a look at the CFS model next. I've got the CFS broken down into weekly periods, 500 millibar heights broken down into weekly periods. Very similar to what we're looking at from the JMA actually, but a different model. This is from the United States. The link to these charts was sent to me by Adam at KentLondonWeather.com. So thanks very much, Adam, for sending me the link to these charts. They're very useful, so you'll probably be seeing these appearing quite often in the videos. So the first week period will be taking us through the week we're currently in. Again, it's the 30th of July to the 5th of August, and for this weekly period, again, it's a similar idea to the JMA, where we've got the high pressure up to the east and the northeast of the country, and then we've got this trough of low pressure around and centred slightly to the north of the country. The JMA has its centre slightly to the west, whereas the CFS has it slightly to the north. So this is probably a little bit more of an unsettled type scenario overall. For the coming week period, it could be quite wet at times, and the winds are perhaps more southwesterly as opposed to southerly, but overall it's a similar sort of start to August through this coming week. Quite unsettled, the worst of the unsettled conditions, particularly in the north and west. Now, going through to the second weekly period, which will take us from the 6th to the 12th of August, what we see here is that we get this area of above average heights, area of high pressure, really becoming quite dominant over Scandinavia, a big area of high pressure up there. We've still got the trough out to the west of the country, so again, it's very similar to what we're looking at from the JMA. Really, the airflow is generally southerly, could be very warm at times, maybe even a day or two of hot conditions down in the south and the southeast, but with this trough to the west, if it was to turn hot in the southeast, the trough will push in, it will very quickly turn unsettled with a thundery sort of breakdown setting up, so any heat can't be sustained for any particular length of time. Now, going through to the next period, which takes us from the 13th to the 19th of August, what we're looking at here is still that we've got the ridge of high pressure up to the northeast of the country, quite a big area of high pressure up there. We're losing the trough though out to west. I'm not sure what's going on for us. It could be a little bit more settled that period through the middle of August, maybe a little bit warmer as well if that was to come off, because we've lost the trough out to the west. I think the winds would still generally be sort of southeasterly, maybe easterly, so that could be the warmest period of the month through the middle of August. We may get a few days of quite settled weather with that. It could turn quite hot potentially down in the southeast, not the sort of heat that was being talked about in the papers, but certainly temperatures back up towards 30 degrees perhaps for a day or two down in the south and the southeast. And then as we go through to the final period, week period, which takes us from the 20th to the 26th of August, what we're finding then is that the above average heights is setting up over Iceland and to the north of Scandinavia, so got a bit of northern blocking taking place there. It doesn't show it, but I would suspect that underneath that we tend to get an area of low pressure beginning to set up. So as we get through to the latter stages of August, things could turn more unsettled again, and probably quite cool actually with that high pressure going up to Iceland. We could see the winds becoming more sort of northerly or northeasterly based around an area of low pressure. So going through to the end of August, it could turn cooler and more unsettled on that scenario. They're very useful charts, but I've just shown you there, and we will be seeing them again from the CFS model over the coming few weeks and months. They'll be very interesting to use and useful to use as we get through towards winter. Finally, have a look at the generic charts, have a look at the GFS for next week to 10 days. Here we are for the middle of next week, got a ridge of high pressure across England and Wales. The low pressure is out to the northwest of the country. As we run through the second half of next week, that low pressure pushes eastwards, probably bringing a band of rain. The suggestion is that the low pressure is stalling there over the country, so that could be producing quite a lot of rain through the second half of next week. It is still warm though. The airflow is generally southerly based, so it's not cold, it's warm, but it is unsettled. Going through to next weekend, we find low pressure still coming in off the Atlantic, particularly affecting the north and west. Always the idea that we're trying to get some sort of bridging down to the south and the east. We aimed up on day 10 and going through beyond day 10 into the 12th of August, still with the same idea. The low pressure is out to the northwest, we've got a ridge of high pressure down to the south southeast, so it's always more settled to the north and northwest. The most settled conditions are down to the south and southeast, but certainly nothing particularly hot or settled in terms of sustained heat being shown there. The ECMWF for the middle of next week, again, we've got that reach through the country. It doesn't last though, because very slackly we bring low pressure through, slack areas of low pressure across the country. It is still warm, so some of this could be thundery, but quite wet, particularly in the north and the west. We get through to next weekend, again it's all very slack, and then we generate quite a bizarre area of low pressure over the country. Not sure about that, but it would certainly produce a lot of rain if that came off. It's within warm and humid air, and then the low pressure clears eastwards by day 10, and we're trying to reach a high back into the south, but there's more low pressure in the Atlantic. So we're looking at a mixed period through the first week to 10 days of August. We can say that with good confidence. It's not going to be cold, it's going to be quite warm, but it will be mixed. There'll be rain at times, particularly but not exclusively to north and northwest. Going out beyond that, it probably stays quite mixed, to be honest. We may get a few days of warmer, drier conditions perhaps through the middle of August, but overall not seeing anything particularly hot or settled. Sustained heat doesn't look likely on the current pattern. It's not to say it can't happen, not seeing much sign of it at the moment. So that's how it's looking anyway this morning. I've got to do the August month head forecast, which you'll be able to see over the weekend. It will reflect what we've looked at today, so I wouldn't be expecting a very hot month to be predicted by GasWeather's for August, but certainly another warmer than average month is quite probable. And we'll have a look at all that as we go into the weekend. That's all for now. Hope you found the video interesting. Thanks for watching.